Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you've been following the news about these $2,000 tariff rebate checks, you know the story has been changing almost daily.
It really has.
But today, we have something solid. We have confirmed news that doesn't just change the story, it completely flips the script on who gets paid first.
It really does.
So our mission today is pretty simple. We want to unpack this really critical and confirmed change to the whole structure. We're talking about a brand new update that gives low-income seniors a high priority status for these payments.
And when we say low-income seniors, we're being very specific here. We mean people who rely on Social Security or, SSI or SSDI to live.
Exactly.
And the really surprising part here is how fast this all happened. I mean, just last week, this priority list for seniors, it just didn't exist. The framework was kind of a wait-and-see situation for them.
Right. They were in the queue, but nobody knew where.
Exactly. This was a quiet but really massive overhaul that the Treasury pushed through after the president had already confirmed the checks. It wasn't speculation. It was a direct response to some new economic data. So you really need to understand everything you thought you knew about the payment order has been completely turned on its head.
And that's the key takeaway for this whole deep dive. Low-income seniors have officially moved from somewhere in the middle, or maybe even the back of the line, right to a guaranteed spot at the very front.
The very front.
So we need to get into exactly what caused this, why it happened so quietly, and most importantly, what this all means for you in your timeline.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with what everyone already knows. President Trump officially approved the $2,000 tariff rebate checks.
Right, that was the big headline.
And initially, all the focus was on, middle-income families, workers, the people who are directly paying for these tariffs on imported goods.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, the logic was, we collected this tariff money, so let's give it back to the active tax-paying workforce. The whole original system was built around things like W-2 forms and tax filings.
And seniors were mentioned, but they weren't really a priority group in that first design.
No, not at all. They were eligible, but they were sort of an afterthought. It wasn't a malicious oversight. It was more of a systemic one. The system was just designed for workers first.
So what was the big pivot? What changed?
The change came almost immediately after the signing. It was the creation of a brand new, completely separate priority list just for low-income seniors. This grants them, early access.
So let's be really clear about who this new list targets.
It's targeting households that have the least financial flexibility. We're talking about people living mostly or even entirely on Social Security or maybe benefits like SSI or SSDI.
Can we quickly, just for anyone who might not know, break down what those are?
Absolutely. So Social Security is your retirement and disability benefits based on what you paid in while you were working. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
Then there's SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. That's for workers who become disabled before retirement age. Again, you had to have paid into the system.
Okay.
But SSI is the different one. Supplemental Security Income. That's a needs-based program. It's for people who maybe didn't work enough to qualify for much Social Security or have severe disabilities, and their income and assets are below a really strict limit.
And the common thread for all of them is that the income is fixed. It doesn't go up when the price of gas or groceries goes up.
That's the critical piece. It's fixed. And that's what the Treasury finally zeroed in on.
So what was the official language, the trigger that made this huge change happen?
It all came down to one single sentence that was slipped into the updated Treasury guidance. The memo said, and I'm quoting here, households with limited or fixed income should not be left behind. And that wasn't just, a nice sentiment. It was an operational directive. It forced the Treasury to stop thinking about just returning tax revenue and start thinking about preventing real financial hardship.
So that one sentence basically changed the whole goal of the program.
It completely changed the criteria from just what's your income level to how vulnerable is your income. It was a massive philosophical shift.
So if you're a senior and your main or maybe your only income is from Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, your eligibility score, so to speak, just shot way, way up.
It's the strongest possible signal. And we have to stress, this isn't a bill that's waiting to be passed or some rumor. This is a done deal. It's a confirmed update that's already being implemented by the SSA, the IRS, and the Treasury. The gears are already turning to get this group moved to the front.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Why did this happen so fast and, frankly, so quietly? The source material says this all happened behind closed doors in the last couple of weeks. If it was so obvious that seniors were vulnerable, why wasn't the program just built this way from the start?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of the bureaucratic reality. The first version of the program wasn't intentionally against seniors, but it was built on a system that automatically disadvantages them.
How so?
The program was designed to return tariff money, so the default tool for doing that is the IRS tax system. And the IRS system is built to read W-2s from employers, 1099s for contract work, that kind of thing.
Right. Data from working people.
Exactly. Seniors on a fixed income, especially the ones who don't even have to file taxes because their income is so low, they fall outside that main data pipeline. So the system was on a path to pay workers first simply because their data was easier and faster for the IRS to process. It was a systemic bottleneck.
So what was the turning point?
Yep.
What piece of information landed that was so powerful it forced them to completely re-engineer the whole process on the fly?
It was data, pure and simple. Several economic reports hit the president's desk that showed, in very stark terms, just how badly inflation was hitting older Americans.
Not just general inflation, but specific things.
Yes, specifically costs that hit seniors the hardest. Prescription drugs, rent, utilities, groceries, things where they spend a much bigger chunk of their fixed income compared to a younger working person. But there was one report that was the real catalyst.
What did it show?
It showed a really sharp, really alarming rise in the senior poverty rate, and it pinpointed the most at-risk group, people who were getting less than $1,300 a month from Social Security.
So that number, $1,300, became the red flag.
It became the magic number, because at that income level, you have zero cushion. Any price increase for a necessity isn't an inconvenience, it's a crisis. It means cutting back on food or not filling a prescription. The data showed this wasn't just a group that could use the money, it was a group facing an immediate risk.
So the whole mission shifted from just a simple rebate to like an emergency intervention.
100%. The internal conversation, according to the memos, completely changed. The question was no longer who paid the tariffs. It was, if we're sending this money out, should the person with the absolute least buying power be the last one to get it?
And the answer was a clear no.
A very definitive no. And that's what triggered this whole fast-track review. They had to create the new priority list to make sure the most vulnerable were not at the back of the line.
Now, we have to clarify something that confuses a lot of people. This isn't a stimulus check in the way we've seen before, right? The funding is different.
That is probably the most important distinction for people to understand. This is not a typical stimulus package.
Why does that matter so much?
Because a stimulus usually means Congress has to pass a new law, debate it, appropriate new money, maybe even take on new debt. It's a long, messy political process.
Okay.
This program is different. The money comes directly from the Treasury's existing tariff collections. These are taxes that have already been collected on imported goods. The money is just sitting there.
So the money is already in the bank, so to speak.
Exactly. It's already collected revenue. It doesn't need a new vote from Congress. The authority to send it back out already exists. This is why it can move so much faster and why it's, frankly, shielded from a lot of the political fighting that could slow it down or stop it.
And that explains the quiet strategy. They got all the ducks in a row behind the scenes before anyone could really object.
It was a pure tactical move. If the news about reprioritizing seniors had leaked out early, it would have turned into a political football. By finalizing the rules and aligning the agencies first, they made sure the process could start immediately without getting bogged down in debate. It was a surprise designed for speed.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this is actually working. The Treasury didn't just add seniors to a list. They built a whole formal scoring system. What does that system even measure? It's not just income, right?
No, this is where it gets really interesting. It's a much smarter system. They created this internal scoring matrix that looks beyond just how much money you make. It's designed to measure financial vulnerability.
So what factors are they looking at?
Well, they look at the obvious things, like your income level and whether you're dependent on a government program like SSI. But they added two new and, frankly, revolutionary metrics. One is purchasing power erosion, and the other, which is the real game changer, is the monthly benefit stability factor.
Okay, the stability factor. That sounds counterintuitive. Why would having a stable fixed income actually give you a higher priority score?
It does seem backward at first, but it's actually brilliant when you think about it.
Yeah.
The system recognizes that for low-income people, stability actually equals rigidity. It means you have zero ability to adapt.
Give us an example.
Okay, let's imagine two people. You have Senior A, who gets a fixed Social Security check for $1,200 every single month. It never changes.
Okay.
Then you have worker B. Maybe they're a gig worker and they make $4,000 one month, but only $1,500 the next. Their income is unstable, but it fluctuates. The system asks, who is more vulnerable to sustained inflation? Worker B, even with the unstable income, has the potential for a good month to catch up on bills or absorb a price hike. Senior A has no potential for a good month. Their $1,200 is always $1,200. When the price of everything goes up 5%, their real-world buying power drops by 5% permanently. They can't work overtime to make it up.
So the scoring system is basically flagging people whose budgets have been broken by inflation with no way to fix them. A fixed income means you're just stuck.
Precisely. You are structurally vulnerable. The scoring system puts a huge weight on that factor. So it flags these households as needing cash now because they're at the highest risk of, having to choose between food and medicine if they have to wait. It's a shift from who needs tax relief to who is in immediate financial distress.
And to handle this, the Treasury created this split-track payment system. They must have known they'd need different lanes for different people.
They did. They knew if they tried to push everyone through the same single pipeline, the one designed for complex tax returns, that fixed income seniors would get stuck for months. So they built two separate parallel tracks right from the start.
What were the two tracks?
So track one was the main lane, designed for middle-income families and workers with, W-2s, maybe some business income, more complicated records to check.
Okay, the standard path.
Right. And track two was created specifically for low-income people, especially seniors, who rely on government benefits. And this new priority list we're talking about, it feeds directly into that faster, simpler second track.
And track two moves faster because of something you mentioned earlier, the rapid verification route. What does that mean in plain English? How are they verifying a senior faster than a working person?
This is the smartest part of the whole redesign. Think about what the IRS has to do for a working family. They have to check W-2s from one or more employers, maybe 1099s, bank records, deductions. It's a lot of data from a lot of different places. If anything doesn't match up perfectly, it triggers a manual review, which takes forever.
A huge bottleneck.
A huge one. But for a senior whose only income is from, say, Social Security, all of their critical information is already sitting in two federal databases that already talk to each other: the Social Security Administration system and the IRS's own system for non-filers.
So there's no new application. The government is basically just checking its own records. You called it a handshake between the agencies.
That's exactly what it is. The Treasury system can do a rapid, automated check for just a few key things. One, is this person an active, confirmed recipient of a federal benefit? Two, does their address and identity information match across both systems? Three, is there a valid, current, direct deposit number on file that they already use for their monthly checks?
And if all those things line up,
they get a green light instantly. There's an amendment in the Treasury's rules that specifically allows for this rapid verification route. It means if the SSA confirms your status, the Treasury can approve the payment without all the slow, complex audits needed for a wage earner. It's why they are, and this is the official term, easier to approve. They've built an express lane that completely bypasses the traffic jam.
This all leads to a huge reorganization of the payment structure itself. They've created 3 tiers, and this is so critical for our listeners to understand. Low-income seniors haven't just been, nudged up the list. They've been moved into the very highest priority category.
The implication of that is enormous. It means that some seniors are going to get their approval notice, and maybe even their money, before millions of working families who originally thought they were in the first group. It's a complete reversal. They are now a primary payment wave.
So let's break down Tier 1, because that's where the big surprise is. Originally, Tier 1 was for those middle-income workers, right? People making somewhere between, $30,000 and $75,000 a year?
That was the original plan, yes. But the new scoring system has essentially merged that group with low-income seniors. So specifically, if you're a senior and your total annual income is under about $30,000 a year, you're very likely in Tier 1.
And that $1,300 monthly number comes back into play here, too.
It does. If your monthly Social Security check is below the national median amount, which is right around that $1,300 benchmark, your vulnerability score is high enough that it bumps you straight into Tier 1.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
Basically says the government now believes a senior living on a fixed $25,000 a year is in a more critical financial position than a worker who might earn $40,000 but has more flexibility.
It all comes back to that benefit stability factor. The Treasury is now prioritizing income rigidity. A working person earning $50,000 might have a tough time, but they have options: overtime, a second job, looking for a higher paying job. A senior on a fixed benefit has zero of those options.
Their income is locked in.
It's locked in while their expenses are not. The price of food, rent, utilities, all of that has gone up, and they've had to absorb that entire hit by cutting back, often on essentials. So the system says we have to address the people under the most sustained, inescapable financial pressure first. And that automatically moves those seniors ahead of many working households.
So if seniors are moving up into Tier 1, somebody must be getting pushed back a little. Who's in Tier 2 now?
Tier 2 is now mostly made up of those middle-income working families, generally people earning between, say, $40,000 and $90,000 a year. They absolutely need and will get the relief, but their vulnerability score isn't as high as a low-income senior on a fixed benefit. So because the seniors were moved to the very front of the line, some of the people in this tier might see their payments go out in a slightly later round than they originally expected.
And Tier 3, is that where seniors who make a little more money might end up?
No, and this is another crucial point. Tier 3 is basically for complicated cases. Higher income individuals who still qualify, or people whose records have red flags that require a manual IRS review, like complex business filings or something. But the system is specifically designed to keep seniors out of Tier 3.
How?
Because of that rapid verification process. The whole point is to use the clean data from the SSA to avoid the bureaucratic mess of Tier 3. So seniors will almost all land in Tier 1, or maybe the very top of Tier 2. The commitment to speed for them is built into the tier structure itself.
Okay, let's get really specific now. For our listeners who are on these benefits, who has the absolute best, strongest chance for the fastest approval? What are the hard numbers?
All right, based on the final scoring rules, the clearest path is this. Anyone with a total annual income under $30,000, that puts you in the strongest position for Tier 1.
And what about specific benefit types?
If you receive SSI, SSDI, or survivor's benefits, you are automatically flagged for expedited review. The system sees your benefit code from the SSA and instantly puts you in the fast lane. You don't have to do anything to make that happen.
And let's hit that monthly Social Security number one more time, because it seems to be the key.
It really is. If you're collecting less than $1,300 a month from Social Security, you are squarely in the high priority group. That number wasn't just picked out of a hat. It came directly from those economic reports that showed where senior poverty was spiking. The Treasury essentially created a priority lane within the priority lane for people at or below that number.
Now, this next point is going to be a huge relief for so many people. It's about zero-income filers. In the past, if you didn't file taxes because your income was too low, it created a nightmare of delays and paperwork.
Oh, it was the worst bottleneck. The old IRS system was built around tax returns. So if you didn't file one, or you filed a return with zero income, the system would often treat you with suspicion, like a non-filer, and kick you into a slow manual review pile. It was awful for low-income seniors.
So how does the new rule fix that?
The new rule flips the logic. It mandates that the Treasury prioritize confirmed SSA benefit data over the lack of a tax return. So if you haven't filed taxes in the last 2 years because you didn't need to, you will now be processed automatically. No extra paperwork required.
That's a fundamental change.
It's a huge change in thinking. They are now saying that the proof that you receive a monthly check from the Social Security Administration is better evidence of your eligibility than a tax form. This handoff for zero-income filers is maybe the single biggest practical improvement for the lowest-income seniors.
And there was one final quiet change that targets the people with the very lowest incomes, wasn't there?
Yes, this was a last-minute adjustment based on the final data. The Treasury memo added a specific top-tier priority for fixed-income seniors who receive less than $1,100 a month.
Wow, so an even lower threshold. Why that specific group?
Because the final inflation data showed that for this group, even tiny price increases are catastrophic. It directly impacts their ability to afford basic needs like heat, electricity, or medication copays. The decision was made to move them to the absolute very front of the Tier 1 line. They will be the first of the first to be processed.
So the takeaway here is, if you rely entirely on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, the government has basically recognized that your situation makes your verification faster than almost anyone else's.
Yes, you're what they call a direct impact beneficiary, and the entire system has been retooled to accelerate your approval.
Which brings us to the most practical part of this. What do people need to do right now? And what's the timeline look like? Let's start with the big one. Do seniors need to fill out a form or apply for this $2,000 rebate?
The answer, for almost everyone, is a very clear no. If you're already receiving federal benefits like Social Security, you will not need to submit any additional forms. The whole process is designed to be automatic, using that data handshake between the SSA and the IRS.
So no application to worry about.
No application. The only exception might be for a very small number of people whose records are extremely out of date, like an old address or a closed bank account. They might get a request to verify their info, but they won't have to apply from scratch.
Okay, so let's talk about the timeline. Now that seniors are in Tier 1, what does that mean for when they can expect to see something?
Well, Tier 1 is, by definition, the first group out the door. Because low-income seniors were moved into that group, their approvals are going to be finalized much, much earlier than we thought. We expect that seniors will be among the very first people to see those approval notifications in their accounts or in the mail.
So we're talking weeks, not months.
Potentially, yes. They could see approvals within the initial distribution window ahead of millions of working households.
Okay, what are the action items then? What can someone listening right now do to make sure they don't accidentally cause a delay for themselves?
This is the most important part. The key is to be proactive and vigilant about your existing information. Over the next few days and weeks, you need to log into your account on the SSA website. If you have an IRS account, check that too.
What are they looking for?
Look for any verification alerts. It might be something simple, like the system asking you to confirm your current mailing address, or, most importantly, confirm your direct deposit information.
And people should not ignore those alerts.
Do not ignore them. This isn't a new application. It's the system just double-checking the data it already has. If you see an alert about a mismatched address or an old bank account and you ignore it, that's what could get you kicked out of the fast lane and into that slow manual review pile.
And if you know your information is old, maybe you've moved recently or changed banks, what should you do?
Go to the SSA website or call them directly and update it now. The bank account that your monthly Social Security or SSI check goes into, that's the account the Treasury will use for this rebate. So make sure that information is perfect in the SSA system. That's the master record they'll be using. Don't wait to be asked.
Let's address two big worries we always hear from people on fixed incomes. First, will this $2,000 payment count as income and reduce their monthly Social Security or SSI benefits?
That's a critical question, and the answer is an emphatic no. This payment is officially a tariff rebate. It is not considered income for benefit calculations. It will not reduce your monthly Social Security, SSI, or SSDI check. It is extra, additional money, and it will not jeopardize your eligibility for your regular benefits.
And the second worry, with all the political fighting in Washington, is there a chance Congress could jump in and slow this all down?
The risk of that at this point is very, very low. The program is authorized under existing laws about tariff collections. It doesn't need a new bill to pass. The funding is already there, and the distribution rules are being handled by the Treasury.
So it's out of the hands of Congress, for the most part.
It's largely moved past the legislative phase and is now in the administrative and processing phase. By using the existing SSA data and creating these fast-track rules, the process has been insulated from a lot of potential political interference. The train has already left the station.
So the message is pretty clear. Understand that you are now a priority, trust the automatic process, but be sure to double-check that your personal information on file is correct.
That's it, exactly.
When you really step back and look at this update is more than just a logistical change. It's a huge recognition of the unique financial pressure that people on fixed incomes are under.
It really is.
It's confirmation that the government sees how inflation doesn't hit everyone equally, and they were willing to completely re-engineer a major program to reflect that. You move to the front of the line.
And it really makes you think about the future. The use of this kind of data-driven scoring system, especially this benefit stability factor, is kind of revolutionary for a government program. It's defining financial need, not just by how much you make, but by how rigid your income is.
Right. How unable you are to adapt.
Exactly. And it raises a really big question. If this works, if this method successfully gets money out faster to the people who are most vulnerable, how could this framework be used for other relief programs in the future? It suggests a big shift in how the government might identify who is truly struggling in our economy.
So for you, our listeners, especially those who depend on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, the message is that the system has finally been redesigned for you. It's optimized for your situation. So stay informed, check your direct deposit details, and know that your fixed income status has now made you a priority. You are not being forgotten.
Your needs are being addressed.
We'll be right back here to break down the first confirmed payment dates as soon as they're released.